And then take off the share list slide.
Oh, so folks are just joining us now. I'll give them a minute
Great. Okay,
maybe to come in. Yeah.
Sure thing.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to the 9th annual Dr. Paul Kalanithi Writing Award reading event. We are thrilled that you're here. My name is Jacqueline Genovese. I'm the Executive Director for the Medical Humanities and Arts program in the Center for Biomedical Ethics at Stanford. And I want to also bring greetings from the benefactor for this contest, Jean Hurley, who thanks everyone who has participated, as well as our faculty director, Dr. Bryant Lynn, who at this very moment is actually getting a teaching award, the Stanford Teaching Award. So he could not be here with us, but I thought that was so appropriate because as many of you know, our faculty and also our wonderful judges from other institutions, not only are they physicians, but they are sometimes researchers, but always teachers as well, and teaching the next generation of healers. So we gave him an out for that, for not coming for the teaching award. One of the beautiful things about this event every year is, for those of us who have been at Stanford, who the book, When Breath Becomes Air, and Lucy are like wonderful old friends. Each year we meet a new generation of people who've discovered both the book and Lucy. And it's, God, I get emotional, but it's just so inspiring, and it puts us back in touch with what the book meant, the courage and the generosity of both Paul and Lucy. So what we're going to do now, for those who may not be familiar with Paul, we're going to share a short video. And I also want to give a shout out to Christy Hartman, who is our amazing program manager and who makes everything behind the scenes happen. So we're going to show the video, and then I'll give a little bit of the order of the evening, and then we will proceed.
5 years down the line, I don't know what I'll be doing. I may be dead, I may not be. If you asked me when I was 17 what I'd be doing with my life, I would have said, oh, I'd definitely be a writer. But found medicine was, in fact, the perfect place. I first began noticing symptoms in my 6th year of residency. Obviously, Lucy and I were both very suspicious that I had some form of cancer, but actually having the confirmation was still devastating. Since Katie's birth, my time with her has had a very peculiar and free nature. In all probability, I won't live long enough for her to remember me, and so the time just is what it is. It's a careful balance. If you don't think about the bad case, that ending is going to be very rough on you and your family. But if you don't think about the good case, you're going to miss an opportunity to really make the most out of your life and time.
That's so beautiful. I love seeing Katie because I also love seeing Katie now. I think she's in 5th grade or 6th grade and getting updates from Lucy. So I'll give a quick introduction of Lucy, but to start by saying one of the beautiful things about working at Stanford is getting to meet amazing heroes and sheroes, and Lucy is certainly in that category for me. She is a clinical associate professor of medicine and an advocate for cultural change around healthcare value. Lucy has appeared on stage at TED Med and is an honoree of Mass General Cancer Center's The 100. And I just wanted to say we run a narrative medicine rounds for our residents, and invariably in a session I hear about Dr. Kalanithi from the residents, and it's just so lovely to hear. So now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Kalanithi. Lucy.
I was just muted. Okay, I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Christy. And thanks so much to the judges who devoted a lot of time and consideration and thought and care to this judging process. And speaking of the next generation, we were truly floored by the entries this year and all of the ones that we get to hear about and visit with the writers today. We just were really floored by. So we're just thrilled to meet you and thrilled to have you here with us. Thanks for taking the time and thanks for sharing your work in this venue. I want to introduce Jay Baruch, who is one of our judges, and we're going to get right to it with the first place winner in poetry, who's here on the call, and we'll get to introduce her. So Jay is an ER doc who is a medical educator and a writer and does really amazing interdisciplinary work around creativity, the arts, humanities, narrative. He's on the editorial board for the AMA Journal of Ethics, the steering committee for the Health Humanities Consortium, and the Narrative-Based Medicine Lab Advisory Committee at the University of Toronto. And then he runs the program at Brown. His books of short fiction include What's Left Out and 14 Stories, Doctors, Patients, and Other Strangers. And then his latest, A Doctor's Journey Through Constraints and Creativity in the ER, which is a book of narrative essays. So Jay, thank you so much for being here. It's really an honor to have you in our group, and we're hoping that you could introduce the poetry winner.
Thank you, thank you so much, Lucy. It's always a highlight of my year to be a judge for this really prestigious award, and to join you all at Stanford from the East Coast. I'm thrilled to be here, even at this late hour. And while I am embarrassed somewhat for wearing this little hoodie because it's after 9 here on the East Coast, I am that honored to introduce Jenny Wang, this year's first place winner in poetry for her poem, Why We Moved. Jenny is a first-year undergraduate student enrolled in the BS-MD program at the University of Illinois, Chicago. Since high school, she has been captivated by the transformative power of her words. Her own writing is inspired by a personal encounter with medicine, faith, loss, and our childhood in China. In her free time, she can be found traveling, exploring new restaurants, and baking with her brother. This poem really stopped me in my tracks, and I'm just so thrilled to introduce Jenny. And Jenny, if you can just tell us a little bit about your poem and then share your poem with all of us.
Yeah, thank you so much for those kind words. I'm really honored to be here. Speaking of traveling, I'm currently in Alaska, so if like the Wi-Fi is bad or something, please let me know. But yeah, my poem is inspired by my experience growing up in Shanghai, China with my brother. So we moved there for 3 years, and I went to elementary school in China until the third grade, which was 2013. And at that time, the smog was kind of at its peak. So if you didn't know, like there was a lot of air pollution at that time, and all of Shanghai was kind of enveloped in this haze. And I like wore a mask to school every day before COVID was even a thing. But I always just associated that experience with my brother's cancer. I had a younger brother who had leukemia. And for a long time, I think my family really blamed that environment for his loss. Like the healthcare system in China for being overcrowded and impersonal, and like the air for being polluted. And I think that played a very big role in why we came here, or why we returned here. And I never really found a way to verbalize that. So when my friends would ask, or when anyone else would ask, I would kind of say, oh, it's because of my dad's work. But like, I think writing this poem really made me reflect on that. And so I would be very honored to share with you guys why we moved. Um, in China, they carve onto headstones hibiscus flowers. We left my brother there, beneath soil, burnt umber, a mottled palette shared with the smog. Sulfur tendrils, thickening breaths to gasps, the weight of stale air. He was a prisoner of a war that gnawed at bone and sucked away marrow. Cells gone rogue, waging maelstrom and malady in the red rivers we shared. Each battle leaves scars, land so broken, so bruised that the sky weeps. He was too young to die, but hibiscus flowers too bloom only a day before blush petals become whispered goodbyes, scattered to the wind or drifting across the Pacific to America. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I mean, I just love that poem. It got me reading multiple times just because it's so beautiful. And thank you so much. Um, as we move on, I want to just introduce our newest judge, Ricardo Nuila. Ricardo is a writer and a practicing doctor at Houston's largest public hospital. His work has been featured in the New Yorker, Texas Monthly, the New England Journal of Medicine, and Best American Short Stories. His first book, The People's Hospital, Hope and Peril in American Medicine, was featured on NPR's Fresh Air. In its review, the New York Times notes that Ricardo is a skillful writer who humanizes his points in meticulous and compassionate detail. He is the director of the Humanities, Expression, and Arts Lab at Baylor College of Medicine, and I am honored to introduce Ricardo. Thank you for being part of this very special contest.
Thank you so much, Jay. This is really such an honor. It's so beautiful to be with all of you here tonight. I think that this contest, who Paul was, everybody who is here recognizes that beauty is a part of medicine, and the beauty of attending to that and putting it into the written word. If I think back to being in medical school, even before this would be exactly what I would have wanted to hope to be a part of. And so I just thank you all very much for making this so special. I have a great privilege of introducing our next award winner, who is James Lee. And I will tell you, James, I'm very thrilled to introduce your story, because as I was reading it, I immediately became a cheerleader. I immediately became somebody who was just like, I am going to fight for this story. James Lee is a consultation liaison psychiatry fellow at the University of Washington. His past accolades include the 2022 Paul Kalanithi Writing Award, honorable mention, for his short story Junk Journal, and Irvin D. Yalom Literary Award, runner-up, for his short story Conversations with Joan, and a perspective piece published in the New England Journal of Medicine. Outside of writing and medicine, James is an actor and violinist, actively seeking out works that inspire curiosity, vulnerability, and playfulness. James, I loved your story. Can you please tell us a bit about your story and then share a short excerpt you have chosen?
Of course. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, my story is called How to Attend a Final Birthday Party. The structure of the story is basically a step, like it's like in different chapters, which is like each chapter is kind of like a step to how to attend a final birthday party. At the beginning of the story, you are invited to someone's final birthday party, and basically the idea of the story is that the birthday boy is it'll be his 40th birthday, and it'll also be his last, because he plans to end his life with death with dignity that night. I have been doing a lot of in consultation liaison psychiatry. I've been doing a lot of palliative care work, and kind of thinking about what end of life and This was kind of my fantasy for like if I was given a diagnosis that was fatal, what would I do and how would I kind of go about a life and how would I celebrate it? So this is kind of a fantasy of what in a way of what I would do if I were in this person's shoes. And I hope that this excerpt kind of illustrates a good chunk of that. I'm going to skip forward quite a bit in the story, so you're not gonna meet really the birthday boy. You're not really gonna hear a lot of his backstory, but I'm gonna just throw you right into the middle of the party, and we'll kind of go from there. So steps 1 through 5 are all done. Step 6 is to attend. The Saturday afternoon air feels crisp as you survey the block. Sedans wedged into imaginary corners of the roundabout, sensible SUVs alongside burly pickups, a minivan double parking a Jeep. Last-minute cardboard signs in the neighbors' yards with scrawled Sharpie encouraging people to park in their driveways, some even in their manicured front lawns. Two food trucks with winding lines and frenetic cooking, one serving banh mi brimming with marinated pork and julienne vegetables, the other pelting its clientele with a dizzying diversity of pierogies. More children than you expected, playing hopscotch and Nintendo Switch and freeze tag, while their parents idly chatted with semi-full mouths. Behind the trucks, a game of cube was afoot, the wooden batons occasionally catching the interest of the elderly corgi lazing on the front porch. And at the center of it all, Daniel's home. You salute the squat watchdog as you walk through the front door. The madness does not dissipate as you approach the epicenter. You can spot around 40 people inside, though the reverberative acoustics of the walls make the whole ordeal even louder. You overhear little jewels of juicy conversation, amateur tarot readings, where to get the best thrifted jewelry, a harrowing gallbladder removal. How do you know the birthday boy? Photo albums are distributed across tables, balloons roam the floor, and a barely audible Spotify playlist of 90s R&B sprinkles some nostalgia into the ambiance. A banner above the fireplace proclaims, "We love you, Daniel. Happy 40th birthday." And in parentheses underneath, "Enjoy the food. We spent the funeral money on this." People are certainly following the command, with noticeably large gaps in the charcuterie on its marble cutting boards and multiple empty pitchers of peach bellinis. Greenwood Place is dizzyingly alive, as if gathering so much vitality will karmically counteract the death at evening's end. You help yourself to some bubbly and seek out a familiar face. Skipping forward to step 8, greet the host. Daniel Chen watches his wife waltz away before his eyes settle on you. His arms are tremoring on the armrests, sometimes jerking dramatically beyond the wheelchair, bruising against a table corner or swiping a neighbor's drink. He sits in a shroud of apologies, half from himself as he startles those nearby, the other from the startled party, attempting to be as unobtrusive as possible. He gestures for you to join him, maneuvering around a tower of canapes and into the living room, where you sit in a taupe armchair. You're careful not to spill anything. "Thank you so much for coming." You say it was nothing. "No, seriously, thank you for coming. I know the invite fell out of the blue, but I wanted to throw this party to say goodbye to the people I missed. I didn't want you to just wake up one morning and read my obituary. I wanted to give people some sense of closure, and hell, I wanted that closure too." You remark how he seems to be holding himself together well. Why die today? Finally, someone with the guts to ask the obvious question. I watched my dad disintegrate in front of me. Over the course of a decade, I watched one of my heroes become a stranger. He began assaulting his caregivers, falling every day because he wouldn't stay in bed, yelling at my mom. At that point, they had done some genetic testing given how early his dementia was appearing, and he was diagnosed with Huntington's. So, in residency, I was diagnosed with a heritable dementia that would kill me. Sometimes it felt like I was in some surrealist movie where I looked in the mirror and saw my father. I saw the same patterns. I felt myself slipping. To be honest, I probably have a few years left. I could maybe make it to 45 if the illness slows down, but I don't trust genetic anticipation. I'm losing names and places. I'm dragged down every day by depression. I'm only able to focus on this conversation because of my Adderall. I couldn't let my mom and my wife relive what happened with my dad. So I convinced my peers of my right to die. They believed me when I said I needed a slightly earlier exit. It's good to talk doctor to doctor. I don't have to mince words. But speaking of doctors, you feel a fresh gust of wind as a slew of white coats streams into the house. I should probably say hi to my coworkers, but I'll catch you later, friend. Oh, and if I don't see you on the way out, I love you. And then the final step is step 9, know your cue. The food trucks have left, the families with young children have said their goodbyes, and the masses have moved indoors, arranging themselves helter-skelter across the first floor. Someone suggests a party game, but the idea never gains traction. You find a few acquaintances from college, catching up on their careers and relationships, setting up an evening of axe throwing early next month. People are lazily picking at the crumbs from their dinner plates when they see Mrs. Chen rise from her seat. She walks to her son and embraces him, a moment of stillness that is contagious. Time dilates, the room slows. I think it's time for me to go. Daniel's eyes brim with plea. I'm sorry I can't keep fighting for you, Mom. My son, never apologize about this. What kind of mother wants her child to suffer? He nods at the rebuke. Thank you for coming tonight. I love you. I love you so, so much. A pause. If you see your father, tell him I say the same thing. One final hug, a knowing nod, and with the understanding that staying any longer would only make it harder, she waves goodbye to her son for the last time. As you watch the front door shut behind her, you feel like you've overstayed your welcome. You're not the only one riffling through pockets and purses to check the time. The fresh heartbreak sharpens the air, suffusing it with a sense of urgency. You stand up, ready for your turn to say farewell, only to see a crowd forming around Daniel, expressing gratitude and saying that they have an early morning. You join the semblance of a line that has formed, racking your brain for what to say, last words to a man you will never see again. Do you offer comfort, levity, gratitude? You play out every possible dialogue in your head, unable to wrangle a scenario that does not end in intolerable awkwardness. So, you grant yourself a morsel of mercy. You step out of the crowd and wave a thank you to Sydney, his wife, who smiles back, mouthing, "Get home safe." She still has a few more hours with him, and she does not need to share them with you any longer. You grab your coat, put on your shoes, feel the cool air as you open the front door, smell the surrounding cedar as you close it behind you. If I don't see you on the way out, I love you. And you believe him, breathing out any remaining uncertainty as you approach the end of the driveway. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that we were able to hear you read, James. It's not always that somebody reads as well as they write, but you do. And I just want to say also that I think that the literature comes first before the medical and these medical pieces and the best of them, and that shines out in yours. But it's such a privilege to have to also be a practicing physician like so many of us here, and to understand that beyond the literary there is this mysterious personal portion of it that you attend to, along with all of the characteristics that you give. So I'm just so happy that you were able to read that. Thank you for your wonderful story. Now it's my my job to also introduce our next judge, and that is Grace Lee. Grace is a Stanford medicine graduate and currently an emergency medicine resident at Mass Gen Brigham. She's a former winner of this contest, as well as a New York Times bestselling author. If you have not read Grace's debut novel, Portrait of a Thief, we highly recommend it. It is now out in paperback wherever books are sold. Grace, thank you for joining us this year.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. I am so glad to be back at this contest. It is one of my favorite nights every single year, and I think it is really so meaningful to get to hear these pieces, and it's always very, very moving. I am thrilled to introduce Samuel Gus Ruckman and his essay, Jim Bagman's Last Ride, which has been awarded honorable mention this year. Gus Ruckman is a fourth-year resident in the Combined Internal Medicine Pediatrics program at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. He received his undergrad degree in African Studies from Harvard and worked in the Office of the UN Secretary General's Special Envoy for Malaria before completing his MD at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. His writing has appeared in publications including NEJM Evidence, Journal of General Internal Medicine, and the International Journal of African Historical Studies. This is his first published piece of narrative medicine. After completing residency, Gus is excited to join the medical staff of the Tuba City Regional Healthcare Corporation, serving the Navajo and Hopi nations. Gus, I loved your story so much, it stopped me in my tracks when I read it. I think it rings so true to the challenges and the joys and the humor that comes with practicing medicine. And so I'm so thrilled that you are here with us, and I'm so excited to hear you read.
Thank you so much, Grace. Can everyone hear me okay? Wonderful. And thanks to Lucy, the judges, Jackie, Christy. It's really a pleasure to be here. I do not read nearly as well as James, but I will I will do my best to read a little bit of an abridged version of about the first half of this story. I wish I were Karen the boatman, gently ferrying souls to the next world. We would float together to blue-tinted shores. There, with brief and ancient ritual, I would end my custodial duties, satisfied with a peaceful parting. With round drops rolling off my oar, I would paddle home, wholly unchanged. I first learned about Jim Bagman from another resident I've never met in an email titled PHI Team E Sign Out. The headline reads, 65-year-old man with past medical history significant for meth use disorder and schizophrenia, who presented with subacute fatigue and has been recently diagnosed with Ph-negative BALL. I look up a few terms, try to rearrange the splattering of jargon into a story with some meaning. Jim is a veteran who rode his motorbike to the hospital because he was unusually tired. He was diagnosed with a blood cancer, started on chemo, phlebotomized twice a day to make sure his blood hasn't been splitting open and spilling toxins. And he basically has no immune system after chemo, so he got a blood infection. Chemo was paused. And he's bleeding from his rectum. The email reminds us that we'll need to figure out where to send the patient to discharge. He said he would probably kill his sister if he had to live with her again. The next morning around 6:30, I meet Jim. I see the tracing of a thin body. He is already thin from cancer, thin from meth before that, thin under a thin blanket, half naked, white goatee buried in a pillow. He doesn't want to talk. He should be doing 90, blazing north towards the Wyoming state line and an overdone burger, no helmet. Some blood oozes from his anus, as I've been told it will. He tells me, there is no blood oozing from my anus. I'm fucking tired of this shit. We know you're being really patient. The goal is to get you through this most dangerous phase, then we can get you out. I'm fucking tired of this. It's nothing personal, but I'm fucking tired of this. I want to go outside. I want to go to the garage and see my bike. I call the charge nurse. We really need to do something for him. Are you gonna take him? Me? No, my intern is off today. I don't have the bandwidth to go with him. Can a nurse go? No, we don't have the staffing for that. I'm embarrassed I even asked. The clock in Jim's room has stopped. The medical student notices. I don't know how he reaches it. Fixing something in a hospital is a magic trick, but he avoids the sink, carefully gets the clock off the wall, and changes the battery. The second hand ticks again. There are police in the hallway, the intern tells me. Funny, I didn't hear an overhead for security. Wait, that's Mr. B's room. I lean towards the door of the workroom, straining to make sense of the chatter. I feel hungry. It's not actual hunger, it's adrenaline. I'm too afraid to walk down the hallway. I don't even stand up. Someone stole his bike from the garage. I picture the fully geared officers, mustaches probably, standing at the foot of Jim's bed. One looks down at his clipboard. File the report. We'll look at the trailer park. Look where you want. I'll tell my friends. The guy that took it will be sorry. When am I getting out of here? I don't go to the room. I can't get Jim's bike back. Some days I ask Jim about his penis. The medical student reports that the gland's penis is intermittently discolored, a purple. It self-resolves. It isn't painful. Maybe a vascular complication of prior radiation. We try to order a penile Doppler. The ultrasound tech calls. We don't do those. Maybe we could do one ourselves with a handheld ultrasound? Would you know what to look for? No. The medical student moves on to another rotation. Jim tells me that the penis thing has stopped happening. I try to tell that story to my wife over dinner. She looks at her food, then back at me. I look at my food, hearing what I've said, chuckling a little, though. The lights are off. I don't turn them on. Jim, how are you feeling? Moaning, eyes closed, lying on his back with knees bent in the air. In another life, he ate too much Thanksgiving dinner. He's stuffed with stuffing. He's on the floor in his grandparents' house, being funny. The siblings are doing the same, relishing the softness of the rug. Anything hurt? His abdomen is swollen. It's been swollen for the last few days, I suppose, but now it is tighter. Someone got the key to a kettle drum and tuned it to a higher pitch. An NG tube now, rubber through his nose into the stomach. Dark sludge pours out, filling the suction canister. Wow, there is just so much of it. Crude oil overflowing in the desert. Jim's not pissed. There's no energy there at all. It looks like someone stuck pins through his jaw and under his eyes and strung small brass weights to them, like he lost 10 pounds in the last few minutes. I don't know where it all went. We're calling the ICU. Jim gets wheeled up. The fellow is there. Everyone is there. God, they're good at this. He's being reconnected to telemetry, pulse ox, blood pressure cuff. Oxygen is being shoved into his nose. 60 liters per minute now. It probably feels like being drowned in oxygen. The fellow is talking to Jim. He seems like he still understands. Do you want a breathing tube? This is just while you're really sick. This isn't forever. We're calling his sister. And then it's quiet. There are beeps, sure. The soothing hum of the vent, sedatives dripping pale yellow, but no in and out of the room, no phones and pagers, no pleading that I'll order the meds as soon as the computer unfreezes. It's just Jim and some tubes. I call back Amy, Jim's sister. She is still crying when I tap the hook of the landline a couple times with my finger. I've been trying to heal myself with the radiation of a terrific orange sunset that I can't actually see. The windows faced east, but the light reflects off the cars that are lined up on the highway. I imagine them backing up all the way to Wyoming, like a scene after a tornado. Fleeing would be impossible. There really is extra traffic on the commute home. I'm pissed to have the extra 7 minutes stolen from me. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, fantastic.
Gus, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I loved your piece so much. I now have the privilege of introducing our next judge, Dr. Ashley McMullen. Dr. McMullen is an assistant professor of medicine at the University of California, San Francisco, and a primary care internist based at the San Francisco VA hospital. She is also a Houston, Texas native and a lifelong book nerd who grew up nurtured by her mother, a pediatric nurse, and grandmother, an ordained minister. Dr. McMullen's work focuses on the role of narrative and storytelling in medical education and as a mechanism for healing, advocacy, and improving care across differences. She served as the host and producer of the Nocturnist Black Voices in Healthcare series, a 2021 Webby Award honoree, and recently launched a new storytelling podcast with Dr. Kimberly Manning called The Human Doctor.
Great. Thank you, Grace. And thank you to all of our winners so far. It's a gift to be a part of this contest, and even more so to hear your voices and see your faces and get to relive this amazing work all over again. This was, I think, probably say this every year, but this was an especially competitive year. And the writing just is so uplifting, particularly at a time where a lot of stuff seems to be falling apart in the world. It's a nice reminder of how the arts and humanities really bring us back to the center of what matters. So I have the honor of introducing our first place winner for nonfiction, and that is Maria Luisa Fernandez, who unfortunately could not be here with us tonight. Maria's beautiful essay is titled Grandpa's Journey Through Cancer. And tonight, even though Maria's not here, she's actually on her own journey at the moment in Brazil. So hopefully she'll get a chance to watch this later. And I will do due diligence to try to capture some of her voice in her narrative. So first, a little bit about Maria. So she sends this message to us. She says, "I'm a junior pharmacy student from Brazil and an aspiring neuroscientist deeply committed to translational research. Currently, I work as a research assistant on a clinical trial for recurrent glioblastoma, where I contribute to patient safety monitoring, data analysis, and regulatory support. Beyond the laboratory, I engage in leadership initiatives focused on social impact and community building. As executive director of the Female Leaders of the Americas program, I help strengthen networks of young female leaders across the continent, fostering intercultural exchange and strategic collaboration. In parallel, I see writing as a meaningful extension of my scientific path, a way of bridging research and lived experience, and of giving voice to the complexity, vulnerability, and ethical depth that shape the human side of science. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude for the Paul Kalanithi Writing Award, which honors the memory of Dr. Paul Kalanithi, whose courage in the face of mortality and reflections on life and death have profoundly inspired me. A special thank you to Dr. Lucy Kalanithi for her dedication to sharing this powerful legacy. I also extend my appreciation to the entire award committee. This recognition encourages me to seek meaning and hope even in the most difficult moments, reminding me that, as in when breath becomes air, it is in that fragile space between life and death that the deepest meaning of existence is revealed. So before I read an essay, I want to share a little bit about it. So Maria says, this essay is inspired by my grandfather's life in the Brazilian countryside and his courageous battle with cancer. Motivated by our personal connection and my passion for the medical humanities, I explore how his story reveals the profound relationship between nature, human experience, and the fragility of life. His journey, marked by the cycles of land and the challenges of terminal illness, offers a reflection on the interplay between life's rhythms and medical adversity. The narrative unfolds in 3 acts: life in the countryside, the fight against cancer, and legacy, each highlighting themes of growth, resilience, and renewal. The central act, which is the focus of my presentation, addresses metastases, hardship, and strength, portraying my grandfather's enduring hope in the face of illness. The final act reflects on his lasting legacy, embracing death as a new beginning and the continuation of life's cycle. Okay. So I will read from this excerpt from this slide. Or let me know when we're at the first, slide. Okay. Starting from here?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Act 2, metastases, challenges, and resilience. As summer progressed and the sun illuminated the fields, a new phase began. Seeds spread by the wind. Mature plants released their seeds to the wind, embracing change to colonize new territories and start fresh life cycles. This was a time of transition and renewal, where life perpetuates itself through dispersal. The disease revealed its tenacity. At 18 years old, finishing my first semester at university, I discovered that malignant melanoma quickly spread to my grandfather's brain. He also battled pulmonary fibrosis, each breath a struggle. Then hospitals became an extension of his life, sterile corridors, witnessing his determination against this relentless enemy. As treatment plans changed, my grandfather clung to the hope that each intervention would offer more time with family. His smile, occasionally strained by treatment, remained a beacon. Cancer's assault could not erase the memories and deep-seated faith in life nurtured over the years. Throughout, Vovo remains the storyteller, keeper of countryside secrets. One quiet afternoon, I found him on the balcony, looking out into the distance. With the sparkle of a storyteller, my grandfather began to speak. In spring, watch for lemongrass carpeting the forest floor like a green quilt. And, I'm going to mess this up. Hakuntinga returning from their long journeys. Forgive me, y'all. With intensity, he continued. In summer, meadows burst with hibiscus flowers. Andorinas dart through skies, bringing wheat and oat seeds from distant lands, now rooted in our soil. With a glance at the field stretching out before me, he concluded, and in winter, when the land rests beneath a thin layer of ice crystals, know that life stirs beneath the silence. The seeds collected throughout the year awaken, bringing new sprouts and the promise of another cycle. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I understood. Through stories, Vovo was not just teaching me about the land. He taught life cycles unfolding within him. As I juggled academics and family responsibilities, I was inspired by his strength. At the hospital, one winter morning during a university holiday, transformative news arrived. Treatments were starting to improve his quality of life. His smile was like a sunbeam, piercing through the lingering shadows. It felt as though the burdens that had weighed on our family were beginning to lift, replaced by a renewed hope echoing in his resilient heart. In the following weeks, Vovo found solace in routine. These quiet mornings are precious, he reflected on the balcony, sunlight embracing the landscape. Each dawn brings a renewal. He walked around the fields for a while, trying to take care of some plants. Tending to these plants keeps me grounded, his serene demeanor reflecting his belief in new beginnings. Life's about embracing each day, he smiled, unwavering. As long as there's life, there's hope for a new dawn filled with light and promise. His message resonated. Even in the darkest hours, the sun still shines on the horizon, yet. Beautiful. Maria, I want to thank you so much for this essay. Not only for that, the beautiful imagery and the connection to hope, particularly in the face of difficult circumstances, but also the gift of sharing your grandfather's legacy. I think for any of us who've experienced a loss, but been able to take that and grow from it and share it with those around us, it's quite the privilege. And one thing I remember mentioning to the judges when I talked about this essay was that it felt like a privilege to read. So thank you again, and I apologize for messing up some of those beautiful words, but hopefully you'll forgive me for that. So with no further ado, I'll turn it back to Lucy, and I believe we'll invite some questions from the audience.
Thank you, Ashley. If people have questions, you're very welcome to put them into the chat. They can be for any of the winners, a question about whatever you might want to ask, and we can take those. If needed, I can start with a question that I'd love, and maybe a couple of the other judges can be ready with a question just in case we're waiting for others. I have a question for you, Gus. First of all, I loved your beautiful essay, and there was a number of, at least I and one of the other judges at the least, cried at the end. And there's this beautiful, like, I just want to read the end because you had read this portion from the beginning, but you say at the very end, in contrast, you say, I wish I were Karen the boatman. I would have stumbled across my capsizing raft, desperate to stand at attention, when Jim Bagman rode his motorcycle across the Styx. I would have clutched my hand to my heart as he ripped through those white-capped waters, swearing and laughing through the orange gates of death. And that's such a beautiful contrast with the way you open the essay, and it's such an incredible portrayal of really seeing your patient and loving your patient. And I would love if you don't mind sharing when you wrote this essay or what the inspiration was to be writing this, if you don't mind.
Of course, yeah. Thank you for helping fill in the gaps of my own reading. The very first draft of this, I think, opened or contained early on a line along the lines of this is all completely true, except of course for the parts that aren't. So this is of course a real patient in a real place with the anonymization that we all must do as physicians. I think that I started drafting this probably like a day or two after this patient died. And it was easy to draft and hard to edit. And so I'm really grateful to the people who did help me edit and gave feedback over probably the next 18 months or so. It is a story about a person, about a patient who is, I think, in a very different way from James's writing, trying to squeeze every drop out of life. It's also about training. It's also about being a really imperfect doctor and wading through the extremely murky and not clear-cut moral and emotional waters that we, I think, all figure out how to get through in our training years, and understanding that transformation that happens when we sometimes do stop imposing our own framework onto everyone else. And that's my hospital telling people it's time to go. Excuse me one moment. We're in a children's hospital, if you can't tell. There we go. Yeah, and I think you put it right. When we start really seeing people for who they are and stopping imposing what we want for them, and accepting who they are and what they're saying, even if that is sometimes great, the greater challenge than the actual medicine of it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. We have a question for Jenny, but I don't know where to find it. Jackie, or if anybody else wants to share.
I can read it. It says,
Okay.
thank you, Jenny Wong, for your wonderful reading of your poem. How did you choose poem as the medium for your story?
Oh yeah, okay. Thank you for the question. I think, like I kind of mentioned before, I think this happened when I was very little, and so I think I always had a little bit of difficulty, like processing everything verbally, or I guess like putting my feelings into words. And as I was really reflecting on this experience and thinking about like how I wanted to communicate it, I found that a lot of it was like a lot of the things that really stuck out to me were like these certain images of like the smog or like something like that, or like the feelings, or more so than like some things that were more concrete. And I feel like poetry is such a good way of like communicating or conveying like the visual elements or the more abstract elements, rather than prose. I think there's a lot more flexibility in like all the structure and stuff like that, and I feel um, like it was for me the best way to get all my feelings and my experiences out in writing. So yeah.
Thank you, Jenny. We also have another question coming up for James, which is how do music and acting influence your writing?
Oh man. I mean, arts are so interconnected, right? I I mean, I I love acting, and I love I think that in my world, like everything that's written should have the gift of being read aloud, and like having a human component to it, just like how I think all music should have dance to it. There's every piece of art that we make is so interconnected, and I think a lot about when I write, when I write, I often read it out loud and try to make sure that it sounds like something that a real person would say. And I just think that I like that's part of writing process. And I think that's a lot of writing process is just reading your piece out loud and making sure there's no errors. But I really try to make sure that there's feeling and that there's emotions that can be displayed by the reader. And I think that's really important. But yeah, art is so interconnected. And I feel like, and I'm always like, everyone should do more art. Art is like what's like holding us together as humans, especially in a taxing field like medicine. So I just encourage everyone to do more art and explore different mediums.
Thank you so much. I'm just looking to see Jackie in the chat says amen. Is there anyone who has anything that they want to add from the judges, or a question for each other, or anything else before we close up? Okay, I think we'll bring it to a close. And it's truly a gift and just really powerful to hear from the three of you, and from the four of you who contributed work to this hour and this contest this year. There's so much thinking back across what we just heard about, the themes of like looking into yourself and understanding yourself as you're learning to take care of patients, really seeing other people, processing what's happened to you. We heard that in a number of different stories, and then paying it forward to other people who you can love and take care of is such an incredible gift. And there's so much love in these stories. I feel like in this year in particular, these stories are so full of love. I just wanted to read a quote that I saw actually on social media from this writer named Dylan O'Sullivan, that I was thinking that I hung up, like I printed it out on a piece of paper and then hung it up on our wall in our kitchen. But it came to mind a number of times as I was walking past it this week and preparing to join you all tonight. And this writer puts on social media, he said, Ethan Hawke said, art is a luxury until it's not. And that's exactly it. Why you need to fill your life with art in the good times, because when the bad times arrive with that midnight knock on the door, even a single line from a book or a movie or a song can be enough to save you. So I think that's another piece. And that links me back to Paul and what Paul was doing in his work and his reading and writing, and what it's been so wonderful to have as part of this contest as well. And the way that Dylan O'Sullivan closes it, he says, art isn't interior decoration, it's infrastructure. And I think that's a beautiful thing to close with, if you don't mind. So thank you for this infrastructure that you've brought to us today. Truly will not forget it. Thank you. I think that we can close. Please keep in touch. And again, thanks to the whole group. Truly, and good luck in the hospital tonight, Gus.